Welcome here this morning, but I'd like to extend a special welcome to An Taoiseach, An Taoiseach, past pupil and TD Pat Casey, and local ministers Andrew Doyle and Simon Harris. And now, without further delay, I'd just like to pass you along to An Taoiseach.
Boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen, principal, teacher, staff, first of all, thanks very much for allowing us to use St Kevin's for this event today. I believe that politicians should keep their promises. And earlier this year, I attended a science, technology and creativity event in the Bord Gáis Energy Theatre. I was approached by a student from County Mayo, a 12-year-old girl called Evine, who loves coding. I think she's here. That's you, isn't it? Yeah, I thought I recognised you anyway. So Evine is here today, and thanks very much for accepting the invitation to be here. And I remember it well because I was leaving the conference and she told me her story, a story of having to sit outside the local Tesco car park just to get access to the internet, and why that was so unfair, given that it was so many miles away from her home. And I know that story isn't unique. It's not unique to any one part of Ireland. It's something that's experienced in parts of every county in Ireland, including, indeed, rural parts of County Dublin. And she asked me at the time, and it was on camera, when everyone in Ireland would have access to high-speed broadband, saying that everyone deserves an equal opportunity. And I said that day that we'd sign this contract as soon as we possibly could, and we would then deliver broadband to every home, business, farm and school in Ireland. And today that promise is being honoured, and tomorrow and in the days ahead it will be fulfilled. This is a national solution to a national problem. And broadband means that every home, every school, every farm, every business across our country will be able to benefit from the opportunities that digital technology provides. It is the biggest investment in rural Ireland ever, the most significant since rural electrification. 500,000 homes, farms and businesses being connected, 1.1 million people. And today, by signing this contract, we ensure that rural Ireland has a 21st century future. There are people and politicians who want to divide Ireland and divide us as a people. Urban versus rural, East Coast against the West Coast, Dublin against the rest of the country. That's their agenda. But it's not my agenda, and it's not the agenda of this government. This government is all about bringing people closer together. We do this by investment in roads and public transport, connecting people physically. We do it by investment in broadband, connecting people virtually, and investment in technological universities around the country, bringing educational opportunities to all parts of Ireland. And the 21st century future for Ireland is not reopening old post offices. Email and electronic payments have changed all that. Nor is it about opening old Garda stations, because Garda cars, mobile phones and ITT have changed all that as well. The 21st century for rural Ireland is about something much more ambitious. It's about home working, being able to work for a big company or a multinational from your own home in any part of Ireland. Already 25% of people who work for Apple work from home, and many more people will have that opportunity into the future. It's about smart farming. It's about doing business online, no matter where your business is located. It's about remote healthcare, being able to have your health monitored through wearable devices from the comfort of your own home. It's about digital education, ensuring that students in rural Ireland are able to download educational content and upload assignments at the same speed as students in Dublin and Cork, just as they should be able to do. It's about accessing public services and personal services online, fast speeds, no interruptions, the services of a bank and a post office in every home. And also, at this time, with such an enormous focus on the need to take climate action, it means fewer car journeys, and therefore fewer greenhouse gas emissions as a result. The National Broadband Plan is about making sure that no part of Ireland is left behind when it comes to jobs, services and opportunities of the future. Everyone deserves an equal opportunity, and that's the political philosophy of this government. And we're reminded of every time when we come to a classroom like this and see the enormous potential of the students here and the place around us. So thank you. I now call on the Taoiseach Simon Coveney to make some remarks.
I think I'm skipping the queue actually here, but let me just say a few words before introducing Richard Bruton. I think it's true to say that we have one very enthusiastic person in the audience here about broadband coming to this part of Wicklow. And there are many others of similar age who will have a very different future because of this decision. I think this is the most strategic decision that an Irish government has made in the last 20 years, maybe longer. This is about a decision that will ensure that we don't allow the continuance of an urban-rural divide in Ireland in the areas of technology, which is going to become the basis of normal living for families, for businesses, for farms, for schools, for community centres. And so it's a real privilege to be welcomed here by Pádraig Murphy to a super school here that, like many other schools, has been frustrated at the lack of broadband speeds and the capacity that brings right into the classroom for teachers and for learning. And essentially what this decision is about is creating a level playing field, if you like, for families, whether they're living in Cape Clear or Sandymount or Northwest Donegal. It shouldn't matter where you geographically choose to grow up or to work or to study or to go to school. The access to the internet via high-speed broadband connectivity will be a normal and is already a normal part of life. And if we don't allow that level playing field and if we don't invest to make sure that it's there, we are simply going to make life impossible for many rural communities. And as a result of that, we will see depopulation in parts of Ireland where young people will simply refuse to live because they can't access the kind of information flow that allows them to develop their careers and to live normal lives. And so when people talk about the cost and the cost-benefit analysis of this strategic decision that's been signed off by Richard Bruton and the Taoiseach today, you not only have to measure the value of high-speed broadband today, but you actually have to envision its value in 5 and 10 and 15 and 20 years' time too. And that is what the Taoiseach is talking about when he's talking about healthcare, education, retail opportunities, remote working and flexible working opportunities. The idea that you can live in a beautiful part of Ireland like this, but you can actually be core to a team in Dublin city centre in terms of the input that you're making in terms of your career choices. If you look at where agriculture is moving, we will need high-speed information flow into homes and farm businesses to be able to make sustainable and strategic decisions in the future in terms of how to run a business. So this is an investment in the future that is as significant as decisions that were made during rural electrification, when some people were making the argument, maybe we can't afford to do it at that pace. Maybe we should do it in phases. Maybe we should just allow certain communities who have chosen to live in isolated rural parts of the country to face the consequence of that isolation, and we'll get to them in time when we can afford it. That is the argument that some people are making, an argument that sounds ridiculous today in the context of access to electricity or access to water or other essential public services. And so broadband is in that category. The future needs to be about allowing access and information flow to every family, every business across the country, regardless of where they are located geographically. And this strategic decision ensures that. and it's going to be rolled out at a pace that I think will excite many communities, including this one. So can I hand you over to my colleague now, Minister Richard Bruton, who has put this together and will provide you with an awful lot of the detail. Thank you very much.
Well, thanks very much, Simon. I think, as Simon and the Taoiseach have said, this is really a landmark decision. It is about our vision of inclusion, about a vision of empowerment, about a vision of regional balance. And without this sort of investment, I cannot see how you could have rural prosperity, because broadband will be, like power has been in the past, it will be the key for businesses, for education, for health, to develop its services, to reach people, to include people, and to do it in a sustainable way. So this is, as Simon has said, a decision not unlike rural electrification or free education. It is about our vision for the future of this country. And I think that's why this is so important. And I'd just like to recognise that, I have been privileged to stand on the shoulders of huge numbers of people who've put immense amount of effort into getting to this day. And it would be unfair to single them out, because there simply are so many who've been involved in this. This is not an easy project. It has been a challenging project, because it is so complex, because its reaches so far, because the ambition is so great. But we have developed, with the successful tenderer Graham McCourt, we've developed a model that I absolutely believe will be path-breaking in its impact. And we have done it in a way that it has passed every test. It's passed the test set by the European Union in state aid. It's passed the most stringent tests that we've put into it in terms of the competence, the technology, the finance, the underpinning, the capability. All of those tests have been passed. And we put immense number of protections in to protect people in rural Ireland who will be depending on this service, and to protect the state as the investor. And we have the best option here on the table, which we've been able to sign for today. So this is a historic moment, and it's really important, I think, to recognise those who helped to get us here. It will lay 145,000 kilometres of fibre with the support of the state to bring round 96% of the land mass of the country to deliver to every home. And that is so really important. There's 100,000 businesses living within that area. There's 69% of our farms are within that area. So this is a really important backbone for them to participate in the sort of life that digital technology will transform for the future. So I'm really thrilled that we've got the endorsement of government, that we've been able to sign, and now we're moving to implementation. Within 8 weeks, the company will have boots on the ground. Within the year 2020, we will have 298 connection points out there to be the forerunner, the interim offer in every county of the country. And by the second year, we will be connecting in every one of the 26 counties. We will have close to 120,000 connected by the end of 2021, and we will be adding on that at close to 100,000 per year thereafter. So this is a really ambitious programme, but it is absolutely important for the future of Ireland, and that's why it has received this endorsement. So I'd just like to thank all of those who have been involved, and I'd like to thank Pat Casey. It's hard to envisage what he must have been like sitting in the front row with his short pants, but I think we've all been there. But thanks very much for coming along.
Taoiseach, Taoiseach, ministers, good morning everybody. I want to say a special thanks to the boys and girls who came in here this morning, especially because it's your day off, so thank you. The internet and digital technologies are transforming our world in every walk of life and in every line of business. And if we are not fully prepared for this fourth industrial revolution, then as a country, we're going to be left behind. So I'm going to share a few statistics with you. It took 75 years for the telephone to reach 50 million people. It took 38 years for the radio to reach 50 million people. It took 10 months for YouTube to reach 50 million users, and it took 19 days for Pokemon Go to reach 50 million euros. So that just goes to show you the huge power of the internet. And remember, as we stand here today, this is as slow as it gets. So we need broadband right across the country to benefit from the changes that are speeding down the track at us. So it's an absolute essential. And that's why I warmly welcome the signing of the contract for the National Broadband Plan today, which will be central to delivering key government strategies like Future Jobs Ireland and the regional enterprise plans. This project will be a game changer for rural Ireland. It will give rural entrepreneurs and SMEs a lifeline into the digital world and increase the attractiveness of the regions as places to invest. To give you one practical example, it will allow business to offer further options for flexible working arrangements, particularly remote working. We already have a number of companies in Ireland who offer remote working to their employees, and this trend it's only going to increase. Apple, for example, employ over 6,000 people at their European headquarters in Cork. Over 1,000 of these employees work remotely from every single county in the country. For employees, remote working can mean substantial savings in terms of rent and property costs. It can also reduce the need to commute, leading to a better work-life balance. And for businesses, it can help to attract and retain talent, something that is becoming even more challenging as we approach full employment. More generally, the ability to live and work in regional locations can help to take pressure off our cities and therefore the environment. So just look what has been achieved at the Ludgate Hub in Cork, a digital hub which has harnessed the power and benefits of 1 gigabit broadband to deliver over 100 jobs locally. In fact, it has proven so successful, a second hub must now be developed, and there are similar success stories in the Hive in Carrick-on-Shannon. The National Broadband Plan will unlock the enormous potential in rural Ireland and enable us to replicate success stories like these right across the country. Of course, if it was cheap and easy to deliver high-speed broadband up every laneway and boring in this country, then the commercial sector would have done it a long time ago. But that hasn't happened, so the government is intervening to ensure that over 1 million people in rural Ireland are not treated as second-class citizens. We're ending what is, at present, a digital divide in this country between those who have broadband and those who don't. Yes, it is going to cost money, but if we are serious about regional development, then as a country, we simply cannot afford not to do this. So, in my view, this is a great day for all of Ireland, because at long last, we will all have high-speed broadband. Thank you. And I hand you over to Minister Kevin.
Good morning, everybody. And how could you follow that? We say thank you, Minister. Today is really, it's a landmark day for Ireland, and for rural Ireland in particular. The signing of the contract with the National Broadband Ireland is for the delivery of high-speed broadband to over 500,000 premises. And it is a huge step closer to universal connectivity for everyone in Ireland. And I think that is the basis of it all. The Mobile Phone and Broadband Task Force, which I chair, has made huge strides in preparing for the delivery of this plan by identifying and addressing issues that would have the potential to delay the rollout on the ground. We are now ready to go. Rural Ireland is ready to go, and our local authorities are ready to go. We have broadband officers employed across the entire country, co-financed by the Department of Rural and Community Development, and they're ready to do their part to ensure that the rollout of high-speed broadband runs smoothly. And I would like to also compliment Minister Ring, who has been very, very helpful in the Department of Community and Rural Development in co-financing the broadband officers. The National Broadband Plan will be delivered through the country on a phased basis. However, we also need to support areas which might otherwise not be fully connected until later in the process. That is why we are also launching today the Broadband Connection Points Initiative. This initiative will see almost 300 premises in some of the most remote parts of the country provided with high-speed broadband, making on-site internet access available to local communities. Local broadband officers, supported by my officials, have identified these sites in every county and are working closely with the site owners. They have done tremendous work in preparing, meeting people, visiting the schools, the community centres and the sports clubs. I would also like to commend the site owners for making their premises available. They've been asked to support their communities, and they have agreed enthusiastically to do so. The National Broadband Plan will see an investment by the government which is capped at 2.1 billion, plus VAT at 355 million, and a conditional and contingency subsidy of 480 million. This represents a huge commitment to promoting economic development in rural Ireland and will help attract investments, job support creation and connect communities in the regions. The National Broadband Plan will provide access to high-speed broadband for 1.1 million people living and working over 537,000 premises in the intervention area. These premises include 44,000 businesses, over 54,500 farms and 695 schools. Students, older people, farmers and SMEs will all benefit. Implementation will begin immediately. Over 90% of premises in the state will have access to high-speed broadband within the next 4 years. The National Broadband Plan will set up a wholesale open access company dedicated to the rollout of a predominantly fibre-to-the-home network in the intervention area. The network will be capable of delivering future-proofed, high-speed broadband, initially providing services of up to 150 megabytes per second to the majority of homes and up to 1 gigabyte per second to heavy data users and small and medium-sized enterprises. The European Commission approved the National Broadband Plan for public funding in line with the state aid rules on the 15th of November. This is a huge endorsement of the National Broadband Plan by the European Union, and it's a proud achievement for Ireland to have got that endorsement. Having connection to a high-speed broadband service is a necessity now more than ever. Just as roads came and then electricity, the government have ensured that broadband access will also be delivered. I have no doubt that the government's decision here today will leave a lasting legacy for rural Ireland into the future. Finally, no one will be left behind in this digital age, and today signing has meant that that will be brought forward. Thank you all very much.
Thank you very much, Taoiseach, Tánaiste, Ministers. And now we have an opportunity for questions. We're going to start off with Will Goodbody from RTE. Will, if you could give your question and say who you're directing it to, please. Thank you.
Sure, it's directed to the Taoiseach. Good morning, Taoiseach. The opposition has already described today as an historic mistake, I suppose, in terms of the amount of money that this is going to cost, the fact that the network will fall into the ownership of the consortium at the end of it, and other criticisms as well. How can you be sure that you're not making an historic mistake that we will live to regret in 2.5 decades' time?
I suppose since we announced that we were going ahead with this plan back in May, the opposition have had 5 months to come up with an alternative. And they said 5 months ago that they were in favour of a national broadband plan, but they wanted to do it quicker and more cheaply. They had 5 months to come up with the plan that was cheaper and quicker, and they didn't come up with it. And the truth is that if we didn't go ahead with the national broadband plan, if we didn't sign the contract that we're signing now, we would set this back another 3 to 5 years. And as is always the case with infrastructure projects, when you put them back, they take longer. So I'm confident this is being done in the best mechanism possible. And let's not forget the value of this. 500,000 homes, premises, schools, farms across Ireland, 1.1 million people being connected to rural broadband. If we were spending €3 billion on a metro in Dublin or €5 billion connecting the cities by motorway, nobody would say it's a waste of money. But this is actually bigger than that. It's 1.1 million people across the entire country.
Next question to Pat Leahy of the Irish Times.
Thanks again to the Taoiseach. Taoiseach, if I can digress momentarily from the subject we're here for. There's further comments by the Fine Gael by-election candidate in Wexford, Verona Murphy, reported in this morning's Wexford People, in which she says that ISIS has manipulated children as young as 3 or 4 coming to Ireland, that drink driving laws have decimated rural Ireland, and that enforcement of these laws always appears to be on the Irish individual. She says of the Minister for Housing, Eoin Murphy, that his attitude is to let people eat cake. She says that addiction and bad personal choices lead people to become homeless. Can you say if you're still fully behind the candidate, Taoiseach, and will you be travelling to Wexford to campaign with her?
You know, Verona's a very outspoken, very independent person. She's not going to be the kind of person who toes the party line. And I think on some occasions she's got it absolutely wrong. But she is the selected candidate, and I will certainly be campaigning with her before a polling day, and I have done since. But just in relation to her comments that she made the other day, you know, I spoke to her about them yesterday. They were misinformed, they were ill-advised, they were wrong, and she was right to apologise for them. We have hundreds of thousands of people in Ireland who are migrants. They contribute to our economy, to our society, to our public services. A very small number come from Iraq and Syria, and those who do are much more likely to be fleeing ISIS than having anything to do with ISIS. And she understands that now, and I think it's right and important that she did withdraw those remarks and apologise for them.
Nicole Gernan from Virgin Media.
Thank you. My question is just in relation to the costs. So obviously Minister Canny outlined there that the cap's going to be at 3 billion with the 480 million contingency. Obviously everyone will be very concerned with obviously the cost overrun with the National Children's Hospital, and would be quite fearful that something like this could happen again. So I suppose, what guarantees can you give to the public and the taxpayer that this is not going to come back to us, you know, a couple of years down the line?
Yeah, I suppose one thing that's fundamentally different about this contract and the contract for the Children's Hospital is that the contract is so different. It is 3 billion, which includes provision for contingencies and also includes VAT. And the contract contains all sorts of clawbacks. So if the company saves money on the rollout of the fibre, the government gets some money back. If the company makes more profit than anticipated, the government gets money back. So in many ways it's the total opposite of the National Children's Hospital contract. It can only get cheaper because some of the contingencies won't arise. We'll get the VAT payment back. That's essentially a circular payment back to the state. And if there are any savings on rollout, any savings on the cost of delivering it, any profits made during the course of it beyond a certain limit, you see the government getting all sorts of clawbacks. So this is one that I would wager will actually cost less than 3 billion as opposed to more.
Minister Bruton, would you like to add to that at all?
Well, no, I think the Taoiseach has answered it absolutely accurately. As well as the clawbacks, we have key performance indicators. So at critical points in the rollout of the contract, if they do not hit targets that are set, there will be penalties for it. And we will have very stringent governance and oversight by the department, and we will be setting up the team to do that. It is clear that any big projects like this, they have risks, but we have created a contract that provides protections for the taxpayer and for the user. And that's really an important part of it, and that's why it has taken so long. And great care was taken, because there was just one remaining tenderer, to make sure that we built in those protections. And if you read the EU's decision, you will see how they commend each of those protections that we've built in as being critical to the success and the approval that they gave it.
Next question is to Andrew Louth from Newstalk.
If I could just digress from the National Broadband Plan as well for a minute, Taoiseach. Fianna Fáil leader Micheál Martin accused Fine Gael of playing the populist card in relation to Verona Murphy's comments. I suppose, what have you got to say to that? And have you spoken to Deputy Martin since on the matter?
No, I haven't spoken to Deputy Martin on it, nor has he spoken to me, and we didn't speak last week when the focus was on comments made by one of his candidates that were also controversial, to put it that way. So we haven't talked about Lorraine Clifford-Lee or about Verona Murphy.
And just what's your reaction to the comments in general, to what Micheál Martin said? So Fine Gael playing the populist card?
Well, I think it's quite the reverse. You know, we acted very quickly when Fianna Fáil had an issue with their candidate last week. For the first few days, there was no apology. There was a suggestion that it was all part of a right-wing conspiracy and a smear campaign. We acted very differently. We acted immediately. I spoke to Verona. Charlie Flanagan, who's Director of Elections, spoke to too. We explained to her that her comments were unacceptable, that they were misinformed, and that she needed to develop a better understanding of the issues around asylum and immigration. And she's done that, and she's apologised and retracted the remarks as a result. So I think we acted much more swiftly than Fianna Fáil did.
I think we have Teresa Kelly from the Wicklow Times here. Okay. Juno McEnroe from the Examiner.
Taoiseach, just to stay on the same subject in relation to Verona Murphy, you spoke at the beginning here in your speech on broadband saying this is a government that would not divide the country and does not want to divide the country. Surely those remarks from the election candidate are designed to divide people. Do you have confidence in her still? And how can the party support her, given what was said? And if I could just return to the broadband contract, there are reports that some commercial operators may be waiting to put forward a legal challenge on state aid rules. Do you have any concerns about that? And could I ask you, Minister Bruton, as well, to respond to that? Thank you.
Yeah, just on that, Juno, I can only give you the same answer that I gave to Pat earlier. What she said was ill-advised, was misinformed, it was wrong. She has subsequently apologised for those remarks, and she has withdrawn them. And I accept the fact that she's made that apology.
But do you have confidence in her, Taoiseach?
I already said that I do, and she's our candidate, and I'll be campaigning with her before next Friday.
Minister Bruton.
Yeah, on the issue of the whether this is a robust contract, I have absolute confidence that it is. From the very start, this was an open competitive dialogue. Everyone had the opportunity to participate. There were benchmarks set that had to be reached by anyone who wanted to enter the fray in terms of their technology, their capacity, their funding. And those have been maintained right throughout this. And not only was that set out at the beginning, but even as recently as September, we reopened the mapping to allow anyone who believed they could deliver on a commercial basis the opportunity to come in and to offer to do so. And anyone who did make an offer, they were evaluated. That evaluation was also examined by Comreg, the independent regulator, and of course the European Union director has evaluated from a state aid's point of view. So I think we've taken great care throughout this to make sure that it's robust in terms of how we evaluated the project, how we gave people opportunity to participate, and how we reached the decision. So I'm confident that we have created a legally robust system. But of course, in any system, people can make legal challenges. That's a reality.
I might just ask the local ministers, given that we're here in Wicklow today, to say something quickly about the impact that this broadband plan will have on their own constituency. So, Minister Harris.
We're delighted to be hosting this event here in County Wicklow today. We're particularly pleased to be here in St Kevin's with the students and with the newly minted principal, Porrick, as well. I know this is a school that has highlighted for a long number of years the challenges you've had in terms of accessing broadband, and I suppose the frustration that broadband is so near but the connection has not been made, and very much that summarises, I suppose, the core concept of this plan about bringing broadband to every school, to every home and to every farm. I know more than 14,000 premises across County Wicklow will benefit from the rollout of broadband. That's 14,000 premises that don't have broadband today that will now have high-speed broadband during the life of this plan, at an investment to our own county of about €59 million. And I'm particularly excited that a number of the connection points will roll out next year, seeing our County GA home, the Brockle Centre, the school here, and many others actually acting as connection hubs in the interim as that rollout happens. So a very important day for County Wicklow and indeed for the entire country.
Minister Doyle.
Thanks. Well, first of all, I'd like to welcome everybody to myself and Deputy Casey's neck of the woods. We played football down there on the local GA pitch together, so now we're batting across on the other side of the hall. But we came together on this one, and I'd like to acknowledge in particular the presence of former Principal Anne Savage, who championed the whole issue, and this is a symbolic location for this signing of the contract, because with the public, with the private broadband missed it, and missed it by about 50 metres, I think. So it's very important that we see here, and indeed the resource centre, which are going across the Lader, being hooked up eventually for all these children in particular. So it's a very important day. I think we're in what is a valley. It's very difficult in this part of the country, as it is in many other parts of the country, in rural locations, even though we're only 50k from O'Connell Bridge, you might as well be in the Black Valley in terms of trying to get coverage. So for me, locally, who lives here, my broadband is line of sight, point to point, rather than cable. And I'm old enough to remember when the houses on our road were getting electrified in the 60s and indeed in the 70s. So no more than that, I think this is a critical piece of infrastructure for this, as we are in the 21st century, as in the same way that roads, railways and canals have been in previous centuries. We have to afford everybody an opportunity, the ability to have modern technology, digital connections, if we're serious about regional development. So today, here in the heart of Wicklow, when St. Kevin Silva Monastery, he had a round tower, we could actually put an antenna on the top of it, but it wouldn't probably been too far, probably wouldn't get permission for it today. But it's there, and I think it's a very symbolic location, so thank you all for coming down, my cabinet colleagues in Fine Gael and the government for coming down today, and of course Deputy Minister. Thank you.
Any further questions on the National Broadband Plan? No, then I might just ask Minister Ring to wrap up with a few words about the impact this will have on rural Ireland as the Minister for Rural Development.
Thank you very much, Nick. I'll be very brief, but first of all I just want to say this is a great day for Ireland, not just for rural Ireland, but for Ireland. And I have to say, you know, people talk about the cost of broadband. Well, I'm going to say, look at the cost of not having broadband. Look at the cost in relation to people having to travel to work. Look what it's going to do for our carbon footprint when people will be able to work from home, when people will have the opportunity. Isn't that child from Mayo is entitled to have broadband as any other child in the country? So look at, this is a good day. It's a good day for the infrastructure. As my previous colleagues have said, people talked about particularly light. I remember many, many years ago in rural Ireland, they were saying, is it economical to have light in rural Ireland? Imagine saying that to somebody now. And it's the same with the broadband, it's the same with the internet. It's crucial infrastructure. These children here, they're all able to use the mobile phones, they're all able to use computers, they've been educated to do that now. And look at, this is the future, and this, particularly the infrastructure that's going to be put in place now, everybody in Ireland will have it. It'll be a benefit for the whole country. As Minister for Rural and Regional Development, it's certainly going to assist the regions, it's going to assist the jobs in the regions, and it's going to bring people into the regions. The infrastructure is wanted, it's needed, and I'm delighted today to be here. I want to thank the Taoiseach and the government for their support in relation to rolling this out. It's a brave decision, it's the right decision, and in 30 years' time, they'll be saying, why didn't we have it 30 years before now?
Thank you very much, Taoiseach Taoiseach, Ministers. Thank you.